Now, the BBC is under mounting pressure for failing to refer to Hamas, the group that launched that awful attack on Israel territory 10 days ago, as terrorists. It comes as number 10, insisted there is nothing listed in broadcast regulator Ofcom's rules that stops them from doing so.
Well, the BBC says it takes its use of language very seriously, but has stopped short from calling the militant group terrorists, which Conservative MPs have called verging on disgraceful. Well, a former editor of the Sunday Mirror, Paul Connew, joins us now. Paul, do you think the BBC have got it wrong on this?
But if I were Director General of the BBC, and thank the Lord I'm not, sir, I would call Hamas terrorists. But I also respect it's the BBC's decision to take, and they shouldn't be governed or dominated or forced into changing their policy because Keir Starmer on one side and the Prime Minister on the other are urging them to. I think it is a BBC decision.
I think, Paul, I wouldn't disagree, but the problem you have, my friend, is about, taking the view in the room. And the reason people feel very passionately about the BBC is because we actually fund them. They have a responsibility to the people who pay their licence fees. And I wonder whether, I'm not talking about more state intervention with our state broadcaster, but to me they seem to be particularly deaf on this subject, Paul.
Oh, come on. That's the wrong language in the sense the BBC is not the state broadcaster. It's a public service broadcaster, and there is a difference between a state broadcaster and a public service broadcaster. Now, look, although I think they should use the word terrorist and terrorism, I don't think this story is. It may be dominating the Daily Mail front page and Tory MPs, and also a lot of Labour MPs too. But it's not the thing that's dominating the conversation in the office in the pub or the office water cooler of the school gates. They're more concerned about the original horrific Hamas terrorist outrage, and also now about the scale of civilian casualties in Gaza. This is pretty much a media story, and it's not one that the public are that obsessed about. Now, obviously. Pro-Israel protesters have actually been outside the BBC protesting, as there's their right. But BBC was also had red paint thrown on over its headquarters by supporters, of Palestinian demonstrators. So, in a sense, you could argue if both sides are upset with the BBC's coverage,
Paul,
they must be doing something right.
Paul, just really quickly,
every time the BBC broadcast.
Sorry, Paul, just really quickly.
Correspondents refer to the fact that Hamas is a prescribed terrorist organisation in the eyes of the government. So they're not deceiving their viewers and listeners as to the status of Hamas.
And Paul, just really, really quickly, the BBC have at least been consistent on this. A lot of people today saying, oh no, well they've called ISIS terrorists, they've called the attacks on 9/11 terrorist attacks, but they have never actually come out, as I believe the case to be, and said such and such an organisation is a terrorist organisation. So there is consistency across the board at the very least.
Consistent fence sitting.
They don't prevent people like me when they come on from using the word terrorist either.
Yeah, but that's why we're proud to work where we work, because we can call them terrorists.
Absolutely.
We are beholden to different rules because, we're allowed to give our opinions.
In the Second World War, the BBC didn't actually use the word Nazi in bulletins. They referred to Germany as the enemy, which is an interesting historical fact.
Paul, really appreciate you jumping out of bed so early for us. We'd love to talk more. We're rushing through it. Paul Connew, thank you very much indeed. Former editor of the Sunday Mirror.